Many people like me were puzzled by the Joker's final joke. He asserts that it's impossible not to catch, seemingly addressing us, the viewers, and then the woman sitting in front of Arthur. Why can't we understand this joke? Is it too sophisticated, or is the point the subjectivity of humor? To answer this, we must consider what the Joker finds funny. Our sense of humor is completely alien to his. In the stand-up club episode, we see that Arthur doesn't understand humor at all. His laughter is merely a delayed reaction to the crowd's laughter, an imitation. He looks around and laughs when others do, writing in his diary, "I thought the room was going crazy. People loved it." Arthur notes what he thinks are funny observations. Dress smarter in a crowd, maintain daily visual contact, and jokes about sex are always funny. But these observations show he has no real understanding of what makes people laugh. His sense of humor is fundamentally different. From Monty's medical records, we know Arthur was in a psychiatric hospital. His childhood was traumatic. His mother's boyfriend beat him while she did nothing. Arthur, chained to a radiator, was always a very cheerful child who smiled and laughed, especially when beaten. This brutal upbringing fractured his psyche, making him laugh in response to violence and injustice. Arthur's spontaneous laughter isn't random. It occurs in response to pain and social injustice. He laughs when 3 scumbags harass a girl on the subway, twice when his dwarf friend is bullied, and when confronted by social injustice. He laughs when someone calls mini-golf just golf, or when he's run into on the bus. He laughs when he discovers he isn't his father's son, that he never had a girlfriend, and when he tries to talk about his pain, but can only laugh. Arthur's laughter is a defense mechanism, a reaction to the brutality and unfairness he sees in the world. It's not about finding humor in the conventional sense, but about how deeply embedded his trauma is, shaping his view of the world in a twisted, tragic way. Arthur finally discovers that his mother adopted him, and that he was severely beaten in childhood. This revelation is a pivotal moment for Arthur. During his first stand-up performance, he experiences intense bouts of laughter, a manifestation of his deep-seated pain. Arthur mentions that he hated going to school, indicating that he was likely cruelly mocked there as well. This treatment fueled his decision to bring cruelty to the world in return, as violence makes him laugh. Throughout the film, Arthur reveals that he has dreamed of becoming a comedian, the Joker, since childhood. However, being the Joker means he has longed to express cruelty, create chaos, and even kill. In his diary, which the psychiatrist asked him to keep to talk about his pain and negative thoughts, Arthur chronicles truly frightening things. Almost every page mentions death and depicts body parts pierced by knives and arrows. Initially, Arthur writes jokes about his pain, but over time, he begins to embrace and even enjoy his violent thoughts. This shift is evident in his decision to place a photo of Thomas Wayne in his notebook, signaling his intent to kill him. For Arthur, this act becomes a joke. One notable monologue in his diary is dedicated to a dead person lying on the sidewalk, being stepped over by passers-by. There's also the infamous line, "It's the police, ma'am. Your son was hit by a drunk driver." Arthur mistakenly believes that his medication isn't working, leading his psychiatrist to suggest he write more. However, the medication was indeed effective. It suppressed his violent tendencies and prevented him from enjoying thoughts of cruelty. When Arthur's medication supply is cut off after his sessions with the psychiatrist end, he starts feeling pleasure from his cruel thoughts again. His laughter, which had become empty and unsatisfying, regains its disturbing edge. Arthur stops taking his medication and feels better, now more like his idol, Murray Franklin, whom he's admired since childhood. Arthur watches his idol Murray Franklin dance to music as he enters the studio. Murray tells jokes and then dances, leaving the stage, a performance routine that Arthur mimics after committing his first murder. Arthur dances as if completing a performance, just like his idol. He dances before leaving for the improvisational stage, and again after the murder, marking his acts of violence with a peculiar rhythm. As the film progresses, Arthur's dancing becomes more expressive, symbolizing his transformation into a showman through his murders. Arthur fulfills his dream of becoming a comedian, a dark parallel highlighted by the stand-up club he frequents, named Pogo's, a nod to the real-life serial killer John Wayne Gacy, who performed as a clown at children's parties. This connection is further emphasized when Arthur brings a gun to a children's hospital performance, dropping it accidentally but believing the audience will find it amusing. Throughout the film, the theme of comedy and tragedy is woven into Arthur's journey. The opening shot shows Arthur pulling on the classic theatrical masks of comedy and tragedy, symbolizing his belief that his tragedy is a form of comedy. This belief culminates in the scene where he kills his mother, declaring, "I used to think my life was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a fucking comedy." In this moment, Arthur embraces his true self, with sunlight flooding the room, symbolizing his acceptance. Even in moments of severe brutality, like when he's beaten in an alley, Arthur tries to inject a bit of comedy. He reaches for his sign, hoping to fix the situation, but instead, a flower squirts water from his pocket, a small comedic gesture amidst his suffering. In the climax of the film, Arthur appears before a crowd, dancing and pulling on a bloody comedy mask. This act harks back to ancient theater, where actors wore masks to signify whether the audience should laugh or cry. Arthur's transformation into the Joker, with his clown makeup, signals that amidst all the chaos and violence, he is inviting the audience to laugh. This theme of duality is mirrored in Arthur's behavior. As he accepts his identity, he transitions from right-handed to left-handed, a subtle visual cue of his inner transformation. At one point, Arthur shifts his pen from his right hand to his left, recording his disturbing thoughts, symbolizing his full embrace of his chaotic and violent persona. Arthur's journey in Joker showcases a complex transformation driven by his evolving relationship with violence and humor. Initially, Arthur handles the pistol with his right hand, reflecting his fear and uncertainty. As he shifts it to his left hand, he gains full determination, pointing the gun at an imaginary interlocutor. This marks the moment he decides to kill Murray Franklin, symbolically aiming to take Murray's place as a showman. The furniture arrangement in Arthur's room mirrors the studio setup, reinforcing his fixation on this goal. When Arthur finally commits the murder, the gun is in his left hand, underscoring his resolve. Arthur's motives for killing Murray are simple, yet chilling. He declares that the world is terrible, but his real issue isn't its inherent cruelty. It's his belief that Murray is morally deformed because he danced badly. This is highlighted when Arthur first contemplates murder at home, mocking Murray's dance skills. In the studio, Arthur confirms his disdain, stating he killed the 3 white-collar workers not because they bullied a girl or beat him up, but because they sang out of tune. Their off-key singing to Arthur is reason enough for their demise. Arthur's final joke underscores his twisted sense of humor and his need for recognition. He tells the court that ignoring a mentally ill person and treating him like trash will get them what they deserve. After killing Murray, Arthur laughs, finding the act hilariously fitting. This reflects his deep-seated desire for attention and acknowledgement, something he felt deprived of. Arthur's transition from an ignored, aspiring comedian to a notorious figure blurs the line between tragedy and comedy. His violent actions become his performances, with each murder marking a twisted joke. His final moments in the film, where he hums Murray Franklin's show tune, indicate either a reminiscence of his last murder or an attempt to create his own imaginary stage. His psychiatrist, who fails to understand his humor, becomes his next victim, underscoring his belief that humor is subjective and deeply personal. In Joker, Arthur's story reveals a world where the line between tragedy and comedy is indistinct. The film portrays a society oblivious to the suffering of individuals, where violence becomes a means of finding humor and asserting identity. Arthur's final joke, one that his psychiatrist can't understand, highlights the painful simplicity of his worldview. For the Joker, life's absurdities and cruelties are a source of laughter, blurring the distinction between the grotesque and the comedic. Thanks for watching.